They're giving death threats on live streams. They're giving the usual Allahu Akbar screams. They never give love. They never give peace. And if you complain, they'll call the police. That's the way it is from here to Algiers. And so can the West last too many years? We'll see, ladies and gentlemen, but the West is still here, and so are we. The great David Wood. I am Robert Spencer, and this, once again, is This Week in Jihad. David, the poem that Allah gave me this week is about death threats and live streams. Can you fill us in on that?
Well, there's Central Dawah. There's that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's another one too.
Another one, more than Central Dawah?
There was more than Central Dawah.
Oh, wow. I don't even know. So Central Dawah, he was hurling insults the entire time. And then he said that AP, since he's an apostate, deserves to be executed. And AP responded by making an L for loss or loser out of the Quran. And then Central Dawah had a complete meltdown, promised to, he was clearly promising to murder him. But then when AP was like, hey, clarify what you mean. Clarify what you mean. He's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to take you out for coffee. Take you out for coffee. That's right. And so
didn't he say your blood is halal?
Yeah, he said your blood is halal. When James mentioned DebateCon 5, Central Dawah goes like this. And yep. That's all been handed over to the FBI, though. So,
yeah, well,
we'll see.
I hope the FBI doesn't just give Central Dawah an award, but you never know. In any case, has anybody agreed to debate AP at DebateCon?
Not as I haven't checked today, but I basically given up. James keeps asking people, but you got 2 billion Muslims in the world, and you can't find one to actually defend Muhammad in a public debate. And that really tells you something about how confident they are in their prophet and their ability to defend him on stage, when not one of them, any background is willing to get up and say, here's why Muhammad. And isn't that amazing? And it's like, we're supposed to be dead if we don't accept this guy. We're supposed to die and be subjugated if we do not accept this guy. And we say, okay, well, why don't you get on stage and explain the evidence for why we should believe in this guy? No evidence. No evidence. We're not giving you no evidence. No. You just believe it. But wait a minute. There's all these problems and we don't see any evidence. No evidence. No evidence. Just believe. Just mindlessly believe. Pretty creepy stuff when someone says, believe in this guy that I can't offer you a single piece of evidence to say that he's an actual prophet, but believe in him anyway, because I'll kill you if you don't.
Yep. And this is more common than people think. And so I think it needs dwelling on a little bit. I remember, I guess it was a year or two ago, when Daniel Hakikaju was bugging me to debate, and I'm just not interested in debating some liar like that. But it was noteworthy that all he wanted to talk about was Judaism, which, well, I'm not Jewish to start with, or about the Trinity or something like that. He did not want to debate, did Muhammad exist, or is Islam true? And if I recall correctly, you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but didn't AP also invite him to debate, is Islam true? And he refused.
Yeah, they won't accept any debates like that. Like
Yep.
Jake Brancatella, the Muslim meta something, whatever.
Yeah.
He kept challenging us to debates, and every topic he came up with, I said fine, but since that's the topic you're choosing, then we'll also debate a topic of my choosing, and we will debate, was Muhammad a true prophet? And every time he would instantly back down, or he would agree and then back down later, and so on. But I mean, think, Robert, if they could defend Muhammad and win that debate, you won. You showed us that Muhammad is a prophet and that we all have to believe in him.
Yep.
And you won't. And so what the entire world of non-Muslims is hearing is what I just said. We cannot defend him. We cannot offer the slightest bit of evidence for him, but you have to believe in him anyway, or we'll kill you.
I'll tell you guys right now, all you Dawa people who are watching this, and I know you're watching it, here's an offer for you. I will convert to Islam if you convince me that Muhammad is a prophet. You are welcome to do this in a
I would too.
discussion, in anything you want. Uh, I'll convert. I'll convert on your live stream. If you can come up with convincing arguments and deal with the arguments I bring forth, that not only is he not a prophet, but that he's fictional, and that the fictional portrait of him portrays an extremely evil individual. And if you can show that's not true, and show that he is actually a prophet, I will say the Shahada on the air. On this show, even. Wherever you want. Anyway, that's the offer. But we were talking about death threats on live streams. I started the poem with that.
Hey, Robert. Sorry to interrupt, but what you just said, it's exactly what AP said last night about, not sure you're familiar with Lily J. She's this blonde-haired girl who asks ChatGPT all these questions about Islam, but you can program ChatGPT to say certain things. And so AP over time has shown she's giving all these, she's promoting Islam, and she's like linking up with Numan Ali Khan and all these other Dawa guys and so on. She's not a Muslim, but she's a grifter who's learned that as long as you say positive things about Islam and you're a pretty girl, they'll like lose their minds. And so anyway, she's asking ChatGPT these questions, and we're like, that's not what ChatGPT would say. ChatGPT, you can specify. You can say, give the answers that a Muslim Dawa guy would give, and then it'll give you the answer. So we're actually repeating the experiment and stuff like that, and it's not giving the answers that she's giving in her videos. So anyway, AP finally said, Lily J, you sit down, and we'll go through this, and we'll make sure ChatGPT has not been made to answer like this. And if it gives the answers you're saying, I will, and he goes down the list. He will delete his channel. He'll delete all his criticisms of Islam. He'll convert to Islam, all this stuff. No takers. Isn't it amazing? I mean, you would convert, I would convert. AP says he would, if these guys could offer the slightest bit of evidence for anything they're saying, and they won't go anywhere near it. That's how terrified they are of the very thought of defending Muhammad. They can't do it.
See, the fundamental thing here is that you and I are committed to the truth, and AP is committed to the truth. We may have some differences on some aspects of that, but we would follow the truth if we were convinced wherever it would lead. And so if they can convince us that Islam is true, we'd go and convert. No hesitation whatsoever. And so, you know, I've really lost interest in debating because they lie so much, and they tell 12 lies, and then you have time to untangle 6, and it just leaves a lot of the lies out there, and it seems to me to be counterproductive. But if these guys will take a debate about, did Muhammad exist, or is Muhammad a prophet, I'll do it. So you want me, you got it. But only on these topics. I'm not going to debate with you about the Talmud or Christianity, any of these things. You are just trying to divert the issue when you make those offers. And we can debate Christianity once we determine that Islam is false. That's fine. But because you'll be looking for something to fill your life after you realize that Islam is not true. But first we're going to do that. Anyway, death threats on live streams. Hatun and I were doing our Quran thing. We have, it's usually on Monday afternoon, but I've had difficulties getting to Monday the last couple weeks, and so we had it last Thursday, and we're gonna have it tomorrow again, God willing. But what we're doing is we're going through the entire Quran using the critical Quran, and just reading the whole thing and discussing what's in it. So we're going along in this last Thursday, and you see, Islam is my identity showed up and said to Hatun, for your own good, you best never come back to the park again. If you do, I'll make sure you regret it. And then he added, same with Robert if he ever comes in UK. And then he had a little knife and blood drop at the end of his message. And so we talked to him a little bit about how somebody could believe that the creator of the universe would want him to commit murder in order to defend him, and how that was in itself the deformation of his soul, and the alliance of his soul with evil was evidence in itself that he's on the wrong track. And anyway,
it's also funny that he has to challenge you to come to a place when you're banned from the entire country because because the country bends over backwards to shield these guys from criticism. Isn't that amazing? Like, you got these, they're so fragile. These guys are so fragile. Their feelings are so fragile and so on about their fake prophet that if anyone has ever criticized their fake prophet at any point, they say, nope, you can't even come into this country, and they banned you. And then, yes, let's see you come to Speaker's Corner. He's not allowed in the country, you dope.
And that's because they think that it's so terrible that I said that Islam has doctrines of violence. So this guy shows how wrong I am by saying that he will kill Hatun and me if we show up at Speaker's Corner. So it's a religion of peace, all right. But it's also noteworthy, David, in terms of things we've discussed before about how brazen they're getting. That they're very confident in the West these days that they're winning. And so they're coming out more openly with threats, and more openly, like we've discussed, with the acknowledgement of things like child marriage, the endorsement of pedophilia, and so on, when they used to lie about all these things.
And it's a mixture. It's a mixture of believing they've gotten to a time where they can get away with it because they keep getting away with it. And just desperation. They're like in panic mode from all the people like finding out about Islam. So when that happens, when they're in panic mode, they just tend to lash out in every direction, hoping that that's going to work. But I have to say, you know, for the poor guy who threatened you, and Hatun, that's a page of the Quran, I'm afraid, my friend. That's a page of the Quran. You know the rules. You know the rules. We've been clear on the rules. You toss out some threats. This is what you get. This is what you get. Your book gets eaten.
The sound effects are terrific here.
Oh, very good. You can continue.
On the microphone.
You can continue with This Week in Jihad. We all know what this is about.
Right. All right. Meanwhile, in the same peaceful Britain where they ban people for criticizing Islam, we had a group of young men, David, in a town called Pudsey, which is not a good name for a town. And Pudsey was the site of this group of young men. It's tough to... I'm trying to talk to you seriously here, and you're eating the Quran.
I'm completely serious.
Yes, you are indeed the goat. In every sense. Anyway, group of young men in Pudsey, they found out that the guy had criticized Islam. And so, shouting Allahu Akbar, they threw rocks through the windows of his house. They damaged his van. They caused $3,000 worth of damage to his house and van, because he criticized Islam. And they were screaming Allahu Akbar all the while. So it's a good thing that the British government is so intent on protecting the Islam from criticism. I'm really glad you didn't actually swallow that, because I'm not sure it would be good for you. After all, the Quran, you know, it's interesting. I actually just saw recently that somebody is marketing that to Muslims. That you can actually get...
You dissolve the Quran, and you dissolve the Quran pages in your drink, and then you could drink the Quran. I said that. I was like, hey, don't complain about me eating it if you guys are going to drink it.
Exactly. Maybe drinking it is halal, but eating it is haram. I don't know why that would be. All right, we got an interesting story out of Pakistan, David. We got a fatwa. And this comes from Pakistan's leading seminary, Darul Ifta Jamia Namia, and they issued a fatwa, and they said that popping wheelies on your motorbike and flying kites is un-Islamic, as well as firing guns into the air. I don't know how the Palestinians are going to deal with that. If firing guns into the air is un-Islamic, what are they going to do for fun? But in any case, popping wheelies, flying kites, and firing into the air is un-Islamic. But this is why I'm mentioning this. You might think, what does this have to do with jihad? Okay, the fatwa says this, David, as an explanation of why these things are un-Islamic. Preservation of human life is the utmost priority in Islam. I was really trying to be serious here. Preservation of human life is the utmost priority in Islam. And so firing into the air, that's obvious. And popping wheelies, obviously your motorcycle can get out from under you. You could be seriously injured, or somebody else could be injured. Okay. But flying kites, I don't get. How flying kites can be detrimental to human life, I don't know. But what do they leave it out here, David, about the nature of Islam when they say preservation of human life is the utmost priority?
The only time I ever see them actually try to defend that is when they completely massacre, just absolute massacre Surah 5, verse 32 of the Quran. They say,
Yes.
oh, in the Quran it says if anyone kills a man, it's as if he's killed all mankind. See, we celebrate life. And you read the actual passage and it's Allah revealed to the children of Israel this, which is actually a quotation from the Talmud. And then the very next verse calls for murdering and dismembering and crucifying all kinds of people for the vague crime of making mischief in the land, which they apply to anything. If you're preaching the gospel in a Muslim country, they apply that to you. If you are refusing to wear the hijab, they'll apply that to you. And so it's massacre anyone for getting out of line with the plans of Islam. And that's what it actually says. So where they're getting, Islam has nothing but concern for the sanctity of life. On what planet? What planet? Maybe on Mars. Maybe on Mars when Elon gets there, but not on this planet.
Indeed. And so I suspect that they were talking about preservation of the lives of Muslims. And that if you have Christians firing into the air, well, probably they don't want the Christians to have guns at all. But
yeah, the problem is I can't even agree with them on that. Right? Yeah. I mean, they use their own people as human shields and things like that.
That's true.
And there's all it's collateral damage and this and that, and so and then there's all this we love death more than you love life, and encouraging martyrdom and raising little kids to become suicide bombers and stuff, and it's like. They respect the life of a Muslim more than that of a non-Muslim, but there's just not a whole lot of respect or concern for life all around in that religion.
Indeed. And speaking of which, we have Dunia Etaib. And Dunia Etaib is in Italy. And you see she's not wearing hijab. She is the president of the Association of Arab Women in Italy. And as the president of the Association of Arab Women, she was recently talking about the mass sexual assaults that took place on New Year's Eve in front of Milan Cathedral. And they were the same thing that we see all over, the rape gangs in Britain and so on. Muslims taking advantage of non-Muslim women, rape, sexual assault, the whole 9 yards. And Dunia Etaib is addressing some of the false narratives that have been going around about this. And she said, it's more than gang violence. In the case of gang violence, the surrounding of victims reflects the perpetrators belonging to the same community, which is none other than the Muslim community. And she goes on to say, and I thought this was fascinating, Muslims, she says, feel superior because they are Muslims. So they target women of other religions. Mm-hmm. And it is no coincidence that such violence occurs on New Year's Eve, as if to say, you celebrated, but we proved we are stronger. So that's Dunia Etaib, and I think she's telling the truth here. But there's another thing. about the same incident. And that is a woman who is called Imogen in the Daily Mail, the UK's Daily Mail. She was one of the victims. And that's not her real name, but she's a 19-year-old woman from Britain. And she was on vacation in Milan. She was there in front of the cathedral for the New Year's Eve celebrations. And she was one of the ones who was sexually assaulted. And the Daily Mail had a lavish article about her a few days ago. And it says that what she is really upset about is that some people are saying that this has to do with Islam. And she says this: I think it is disgusting that people would use our traumatic story to push a political agenda. And I want people to understand that many of the descriptions I have read are wholly untrue. I will not allow my sexual attack to become an opportunity to divide people. It is a moment to unite women and the people of Italy in outrage that this was allowed to happen during a joyful celebration. I am so upset after reading many articles that claim it was a matter of religion, indirectly blaming Islam while claiming our attack was Taharush Gamea. The evil we experienced that night was the absolute absence of religion. Those men had no motive but to take advantage of innocent women, knowing they would escape without suffering the consequences. It was not in the name of religion. It was not in the name of political activism. It was an act of vocalized disrespect toward the Italian people and their principles. What do you think there, Dave?
Well, someone got re-educated real quick, but yeah, guys, we know the original was completely correct there. Islam does advocate and call for this sort of thing. Surah 3 verse 110 says Muslims are the best of peoples ever raised up for mankind. Surah 98 verse 6 says that Jews, Christians, and other non-Muslims are the worst of creatures. We're lower than dogs. We're lower than insects. You've got Surah 70, 22 through 30, and Surah 23, verses 5 to 6, which talk about taking sex captives and so on. You've got this stuff all over the place. Surah 33, verse 50 says even Muhammad can take captives. And when you see how this is done, you go in and they slaughter the men and take the women and just go and have sex with them. Or even if they capture the men and the women, they say, sorry, we're taking the women anyway, and they can just jump on the ladies. And so where would you get the idea that this sort of thing, even Muhammad after the Battle of Khaybar, he has a man named Kanana, a Jewish man named Kanana, tortured and then killed. And then when Muhammad finds out how hot Kanana's wife was, but Kanana's the one who's dead and had been tortured and beheaded, Muhammad takes her back to his own tent. One of his soldiers stands guard all night to make sure she doesn't actually try to kill Muhammad. And so this is just absolute brutal stuff. And it's completely in line with what goes on in Western nations. And so for people to say this has nothing to do with religion, it's like you just have to make up your mind ahead of time that we don't care what the religion actually says. We're going to say no religion could teach this. But what if it says it specifically and you're allowed to take other women as your female captives and you're allowed to rape them and do all these things because they're inferior, they're disgusting beings? Well, you can't even say that there's any problem with Islam there. You just can't. So, yep. Reprogramming. Everyone needs to be reprogrammed so that words don't matter and Islam doesn't say what it clearly says.
I suspect that Imogen doesn't really know a whole lot about Islam and is only reflecting what she's been taught in Britain about how Islam is wonderful and peaceful and nothing to do with any of these things, and it's terrible Islamophobes who try to link it to behavior of this kind. Also, it's noteworthy that the Daily Mail gave her such a large amount of attention. It's a very lengthy article, prominently featured. Now, let me ask you this. What do you think would the Daily Mail would have done if Imogen had said, "Oh, these attackers were Muslims acting in the name of Islam and in accord with Quranic teaching and Muhammad's example. And everything they did to me was exactly what Muslims have done to infidel women throughout history, as well as nowadays in Nigeria and in the ISIS domains when they had their caliphate and elsewhere, and in Israel on October 7th. If she had said that, what do you think the Daily Mail would have done?
She'd go down in history as the worst Islamophobe of all time.
Indeed. They would not have featured her unless she had a forum somewhere else, and they would have then attacked her as they attack anybody who is opposed to jihad violence. It's really quite astonishing because the Daily Mail, I call it the worst paper in the Western world because it actually reports more accurately than a lot of them about jihad violence and related issues. But then when it comes to anybody, Tommy Robinson, Wilders, anybody who is opposed to jihad, then they're terrible villains in the Daily Mail. And it's just astonishing to me that the Mail does not ever connect the dots and follow through with who exactly is trying to stop these things they keep reporting about.
I don't think they're going to be able to keep that up too much longer, Robert.
Well, I hope you're right, but I got another one here for you. This one's a related issue out of Denmark. And this is, let me get her name here. You can tell just by looking at her. But in any case, Lisa Lotte Nilas is her name, and she's a public prosecutor in Denmark, and she has just brought charges against 2 people in Denmark for desecrating the Quran. These are the first ever Quran desecration cases in Denmark ever since they adopted Sharia blasphemy laws. And so...
Hang on, Robert. Correct me if I'm... Is Denmark the place that actually has control of Greenland?
That's right, yeah.
All right, lady, you just lost Greenland. That's it. I didn't want to take it before. It's a big, useless island full of ice, but now you brought this on yourself. If that's how you guys are going to roll, we don't want your nonsense infecting Greenland. It has to be protected. And so now we're going to take Greenland and we'll have Canada surrounded. And there's nothing you can do. I don't know if you've seen, there's been these articles, Greenland's military is ready to protect. I mean, Denmark's military is ready to defend Greenland from Trump. You guys are out of your minds, man.
Yeah, and meanwhile...
I think, just to be clear, I think I could take Greenland from Denmark's military just by myself. Anyway. No guns, just my hands. I think I could strong arm it. Anyway.
This is the story. The incident reportedly took place in June of last year during the People's Festival on Bornholm Island, with the 2 individuals mistreating the Quran and sharing the act with a wider audience online. According to the prosecutor's office, that's Lisa Lotte Nilas's office, the suspects mistreated the Quran in a tent.
Wait, like this? Oh no,
yeah,
in a tent.
Like that.
In a tent. So it's not the same thing.
Yeah, in a tent. You got to be in a tent.
I can make a tent. I can make a tent.
Okay.
Look at that. Look at that. Look at that, Robert. You got a little tent? Look.
Okay. So they mistreated the Quran in a tent.
The goat tent.
And it was witnessed by several people. And broadcast on a live stream, just like we're doing now. So the Danes are going after those who desecrate the Quran. And that's going to solve everything. Am I right? If we don't criticize Islam, everything will be all right.
Yeah, that's the real problem. Criticizing Islam. If you just stick your head in the dirt and pretend none of it happens, then you'll be safe. In reality, everyone, you're handing off a worse situation and letting your children and your grandchildren deal with it because you're too cowardly to actually deal with it and give them a better world. You want to say, no, 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 let's have a life of ease right now by pretending, and then we'll let the next generation and the generation after that be subjugated and raped. With that said, not happening on our watch. You don't like it? Come get us, Denmark.
Meanwhile, we got another bright light over in Sweden. Uh, this is.
I can already tell what that guy's problem is. But
I just have to look at him. I'm sorry, but that's Mats Persson. I'm sure it's Mats Persson, but he's the integration minister in Sweden, and he's got a big idea, David, about rape in Sweden and the fact that the Muslim migrants are responsible for the overwhelming majority of rapes in Sweden. All we have to do, says Mats Persson, is give them courses in liberal values and tell them that rape is wrong.
That'll work because, when Muslims decide how they want to live their lives, they love listening to guys like that and not to their, sheikhs and imams and to the Quran and the Hadith. And, they just love it. Like, oh, look at this epic guy straight out of Revenge of the Nerds. Let's let him tell us how to live. If we know anything about Islam, Robert, it's that we know they love listening to the rules of Westerners and just going along with them without question.
Yep. That's it. He says, we must be clear from day one that anyone who comes here needs to support our view on women's and homosexual rights. Now, that's perfectly reasonable. If they're going to bring people in,
mm-hmm.
They should share the values of the country. They should be willing to obey the laws. But does Mats Persson really think that they're going to throw away the Quran and say, yes, Mats, you're right, we're Swedes now?
Yeah, and it is a situation where, because lots of times with these guys, I don't know if you see them, but they keep, there are people in the UK who keep going around like nabbing these guys, these Muslims who are trying to hook up with 12-year-old girls and stuff like this, and they basically set them up and then they snatch them and hold them from police. Over and over again, these guys say, we don't know this is wrong. No one told us that this is wrong. No one told us that it's wrong to have sex with a 12-year-old. So you're sitting there and saying, at the very least, could you not tell these guys? Does no one tell them when they get to the United Kingdom? Does no one bother to tell them you can't go and bang a 12-year-old? Does no one tell them that? And so it's like at least tell them. So, to this guy's credit, he's saying we should at least inform them, but
it ain't gonna work.
No, of course not. They have zero respect for the laws of the kuffar.
So, over in UK, of course, there has been quite a lot of controversy recently, as we discussed over the last few weeks, over the rape gangs, because Mr. Elon Musk brought attention to them, and so suddenly we've been talking about this for 20 years. And now they suddenly get the idea, hey, wait a minute. You mean hundreds of thousands of British girls have been brutalized and victimized and their lives destroyed by these rape gangs? And so they're finally having a discussion about it. And so you can probably predict what's happening next. We have here, where is she? Zara Mohammed. There she is, the lovely Zara. And she, up until recently, was the head of the Muslim Council of Britain. You can see the MCB there with the stylized crescent for the C. And the Muslim Council of Britain and Zara Mohammed, they're very upset. And she says that Britain is suffering from a tidal wave of Islamophobia. She says it was the Southport riots for us that made it really quite alarming. It was so visceral. I guess she probably doesn't speak that way. We were watching on our screens, people breaking doors down, stopping cars, attacking taxi drivers, smashing windows, smashing mosques. Gee, I didn't hear about that. Did you hear about that, David?
Mm-mm.
The kind of evil we saw was really terrifying, and I felt like, am I even making a difference? Yeah, I think she's making plenty of difference. But anyway, she says there has been such a normalization of Islamophobic rhetoric. without it being challenged or condemned. Does that sound like Britain to you? A
You mean,
normalization of Islamophobic rhetoric?
yeah, Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't they lock people up for criticizing Islam over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you were to complain about this woman right now and say, what is she on about? Um, you're seriously complaining about us when the government spent decades covering up mass gang rapes because they didn't want to hurt the feelings of Muslims. That's how every journalist, every politician, they're all bending over backwards to support you as you vow to take over the country and to kill apostates, and as you guys defend and promote sex with children and so on. I well, like I don't know. It's and we know what this is. She just knows that is the best way to get what you want. But keep in mind, her sitting there complaining, "Oh, it's so bigoted, it's so racist, it's so Islamophobic here." That's exactly what allowed the grooming gangs to continue gang raping little girls for years, right?
Oh
She's
yeah.
helping continue foster this atmosphere of everyone being terrified to speak against anything with Islam or anything having to do with Muslims. She's keeping this propped up. What actually happens when you get that? You can literally go around raping 12-year-old girls with impunity because people are so terrified, and she's keeping that going. So sorry, not interested in falling for this anymore, lady. But they're to her credit, there are plenty of people in Britain who still fall for that. So.
Oh, yeah. And regarding the normalization of Islamophobic rhetoric, let's remember there are people in prison now for chanting, how did you say it? Allah, Allah, who the F is Allah? Is
Uh-huh.
that it? And they're in prison. So she's trying to say that Islamophobic rhetoric is normalized. Just the opposite. All right, over to Germany. There's always stupid infidel stories out of Germany. This is Mamadou Alpha Barry. That's his name, apparently. So he wants you to know he's not a beta, he's an alpha. Mamadou Alpha Barry. And Mamadou Alpha Barry, he was held up. He came to Germany from Guinea in 2016. And he was held up as an example of successful integration. He completed his training as a nursing assistant. He had no criminal record. He learned German, and he was a friendly neighbor. Last year, there was a lavish article published in a German publication about asylum seekers where he was praised for how skillfully, how fully, how wholeheartedly he had become German. Now he is in prison. As it turns out, he slit the throat of a local politician. And so Mamadou Alpha Barry turns out not to be as integrated as they thought.
On the contrary, he seems to be very unintegrated. That was pretty stupid.
Yes, thank you. You but I feel better now because usually it's me. Anyway, chapter 47, verse 4, when you meet the unbelievers, strike the necks. So a local CDU, Christian Democratic Union politician in Belitz, he also attempted to murder a 54-year-old Ukrainian woman, choking and stabbing her before she managed to escape. And so that's the story of Mamadou Alpha Barry. All right, what else we got here? Meanwhile, the Europeans are rising up, right? And they're tired of this. That's what we're hearing now and again. But it's not a universal thing, David. These are some Antifa people in Germany, where Antifa is quite popular. Remember, I spoke in Germany 10, 15 years ago a couple times, and Antifa was marching around then and standing with the jihadis, throwing stuff at us on the stage when we spoke at an outdoor rally, throwing rocks and bottles and all sorts of things at us. And anyway, so Antifa is still there. And these people, the video is readily available online and ready at Jihad Watch if you want to see it. these people showed up at a memorial service. The memorial service was for a 2-year-old boy and a man in his 50s who were murdered by an Afghan Muslim migrant in Aschaffenburg. I believe we spoke about that last week or a few weeks ago. And these Antifa people actually showed up at the memorial service and started yelling insults at the family members and friends of the victims, calling them fascists.
Hey, so it's not just Westboro, eh?
It's not just Westboro, but the idea that people who are mourning the deaths of people murdered by a jihadi are fascists for doing so. When I saw that, I thought, well, Germany's done. It's not like we're really going to miss it, but it's dead. It's as dead as Britain. If the young people there think they're righteous when they are standing up for jihad murderers, they're going to get more jihad murderers.
And on the subject of Antifa, they remind me of like, you ever seen these like 17-year-old idiots who go around screaming anarchy, anarchy? And it's like, guys, if you had 10 seconds of actual anarchy, you would not be shouting anarchy. And you Antifa guys, if you got what you actually say you want, you would be begging to go back to the way things were. All these people, all these little idiot groups, they don't realize the only reason they're able to go around and function as these insane, idiotic groups is because there's a population and a set of laws that's defending idiots like them from just getting ripped apart by other people, right? I mean, if you showed up, if you came up and you showed up at someone's funeral and started screaming stuff, and there were no rules, things are going to go very freaking badly for you real quick. Like if there are no rules and there are not police officers who would protect you and your right to be a complete idiot. Same thing with an anarchist. If these guys had 5 seconds of actual anarchy, someone's going to snatch them up and do whatever they want to them, and there's nothing they could do about it. And it's just amazing that they attack the very system and the very people who make it so that they can actually continue this stuff. They're attacking the foundations of what's keeping them from getting obliterated by people. They would get eaten alive. They do not, trust me, they do not want a state of nature or anything remotely resembling what they say.
Indeed. All right.
Or communism in the case of Antifa.
Indeed. That's right. And they'll get it. But in any case, let's look into, while time is still with us, the jihad violence that's been going on and some that's been threatened. Nigeria, which of course is always a hotbed of jihad activity. We had Islamic State, West Africa province, ISIS jihadis carry out a suicide attack at a military. Let's see. Yeah, this was actually troops were advancing to fight against the Islamic State, West Africa province. And they exploded an explosives-laden vehicle and killed 27 of the soldiers, raising once again the question, how is it that the ISIS people are always stronger than the forces of the national governments and always better equipped, more determined, and always getting the better of them all over Africa?
Yeah, where are they getting all this stuff from?
Where indeed.
It's almost like they have massive financial support from Muslims around the world who agree with them and want them to continue doing this, and that it's therefore not this tiny, insignificant minority of extremists that President Obama said it was.
Precisely. And so in another place in Nigeria, in Borno State, 20 fishermen were murdered by the Boko Haram jihadis. And Modu Ari of the Civilian Joint Task Force, he said, the rebels, that is the jihadis, stormed the fishing community in Gadangari on Wednesday and opened fire on fishermen working in the area, killing at least 20. So these guys are just going about their business, trying to make a living, catch some fish, and they end up being murdered by Boko Haram trying to sow terror in the hearts of the infidels. Meanwhile, in Austria, David, it's coming up to the season of traditional Viennese balls. Everybody gets.
Come on. There are
What's
no
that?
balls in Austria.
Yeah,
There are no more balls in Austria.
yeah. Uh,
Austria no longer has balls, Robert. Come on.
it's at the end of February. I'm sorry, from now until the end of February, in Vienna. They get all dressed up and they go and do the courtly 18th century dancing and play Strauss waltzes and so on. And it's a beautiful thing, David. It's a genteel exponent of European civilization. In any case, ISIS has threatened now that they will carry out jihad massacres at these Viennese balls, and so I think you're right. Where there are not going to be any balls in Vienna, uh, in all senses of the term.
Sadly, sadly, sadly. Vienna has lost its balls.
Over in France, we had a story out of Apt, which is apparently the name of a town. Guy walks into a supermarket, Intermarché. I think I have it here. Yep, there's the scene of the crime right there. Ordinary supermarket. You can see the little Santa Claus on a sleigh decoration all ready for. Actually, that should be gone by now, shouldn't it? Maybe they're just getting ready for Christmas 2025. In any case, guy enters the store. He's got a kitchen knife. He immediately walks up to a customer at a checkout. He screams Allahu Akbar, stabs him in the ear. I think he missed. I think he was probably going for the neck. Then starts punching him. Then the attacker's knife broke. The attacker is identified as Mehdi B. They never give the last names. 32-year-old man, born in Apt, well known to police, listed in the file of reports for the prevention of radicalization of a terrorist nature. Also has a criminal record, 16 offenses, including acts of violence, criminal association, manufacture of explosives. But despite all that, he was still free to walk into the supermarket, yell Allahu Akbar, and start stabbing a guy who's just getting groceries. So that's France today. Meanwhile, in France, there was a curious story. I don't know if you saw this video, and you know that I'm technically challenged and I have not mastered the art of showing videos, but this is a screenshot from the video. You can see the video on Jihad Watch. It's a very brief video. The guy who is on the right in the picture, he was walking up to the stairs, and the guy who is next to him in the picture was coming down the stairs. And they bumped into each other. And, they look at each other for a minute, and then the guy walks on. And then the guy who was coming down the stairs turns around and walks back over to the guy who bumped into him and stabs him in the neck. And then calmly walks away. And so I thought, well, I've heard of this stabbing in the neck thing before. And I just wonder if maybe the location of the stabbing was on purpose. I'm not saying it was, but can't be discounted.
They do like stabbing in the neck.
Now, we had another over here in Germany, and this was in Schwerte, and there is one of the perpetrators. You can see, even though they've blocked out his eyes, as they tend to do in the German media, you can see that he is smiling happily. And what happened was, he was one of a group of 3 Muslims, Ahmed al-T, Suleiman A, and Mahmoud A, and Mahmoud was 15 years old. Anyway, they went up to this young guy, 15, who was 18 years old, and they started stabbing him in the back until he collapsed. And I don't know why they were stabbing him in the back. I don't think anybody knows for sure, but This one of the attackers here seems to be pretty happy about it. And this was a non-Muslim who was their victim, and the three of them are Muslims.
Yeah, why wouldn't he be happy about it? He'll go to prison for a very short time and be a hero.
Indeed. And so that is absolutely true. He'll go to prison for a very long time and be a hero. That juxtaposes wonderfully with this story out of Iran. You see these two girls. These are two girls in the Islamic Republic of Iran. And so it's kind of spectacularly daring of them that not only are they not wearing hijabs, but the one on the right has the bare midriff. And they actually made a video of themselves dancing. And not only did they make a video of themselves dancing, but you can't quite see it in the photo. They were at the Monument to the Unknown Martyrs of the Sacred Defense War Memorial in Tehran. And so that's kind of cheeky to do that, but it's, you know, young people will be young people. And they posted their video on Instagram. Now they have been arrested and they are facing years in prison or the death penalty. So it's interesting that a guy who stabs a victim in Germany is facing a slap on the wrist, and pretty soon he'll be out, celebrated as a hero among his peers, no serious consequences of any kind. Meanwhile, in Iran, couple girls dance, doesn't hurt anybody, doesn't bother anybody. You may object to how they were dressed, but then don't look at them. And then they're facing years in prison or the death penalty.
And another big difference, as we mentioned, the jihadis will be hailed as heroes in prison. They'll be viewed as lions of Islam and so on. What do you think is going to be happening to those women in prison, Robert?
I think almost certainly, David, they will be raped.
Mm-hmm. Why do we know it? Because that's what always happens. That's what happens.
They will be raped also so that if they are executed, they'll go to hell. Because Allah is such a bad guy that he considers victims of rape to be culpable because they did not prevent the men in question from being tempted. And consequently, women are routinely raped in prison in Iran, especially if they've been given the death penalty, so that they will go to hell, because Allah will sentence them to hell for the crime of having been raped. Just as many women are in prison in Pakistan and elsewhere for the crime of having been raped. All right. There was something else here I wanted to get to. Hang on. Oh, yeah. This thing another thing that has to do with Iran. Let me find the picture. All right, well, I'll tell the story anyway. The French town of, let's see, Béziers. I'm sure that it's Béziers, I don't know, Beziers, with an accent over the first E, acute. Anyway, they put an ad on their buses, city buses in this town. And the ad it pictures, goodness, I really thought I had a picture of it here. Anyway, it shows, oh, there it is. It shows Kim Jong-un, the North Korean dictator, Putin, and the Ayatollah Khamenei. And it says, "Don't forget to sort your waste." That's what it says up above them. Don't forget to sort your waste.
Pretty funny.
And so the Islamic Republic of Iran actually complained. They found out about this little French town doing this, and the Iranian embassy in Paris lodged an official complaint with the French government. And the mayor of the town Robert Menard, said, "We take this very seriously. I don't want there to be the slightest problem, for example, for our bus drivers. We've run lots of campaigns, but they never achieve anything. Nobody even notices them. This one, at least, everyone noticed." And I think, well, this is interesting. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, it's as far as like being concerned about the bus drivers, that is a valid concern. I mean, you put a sign like that, you're going to get some Shia pro Ayatollah jihadi taking out the bus driver.
Yes.
And so it's just another example of, hey, you cannot say anything critical of this, even though the sign is criticizing one of the main proponents of terror on the planet, the guy who just regularly has men, women, and children slaughtered in the name of Allah. Don't criticize him, because why? Well, we'll do something to your bus driver if you do.
Yep. And so
people back down. And by the way, I have to say, I just wanted to say, the correct response, everyone, when someone, hey, how dare you put that up, is to put it out. Okay, every time you complain, we're doubling it. We're doubling our criticism. And if you say a word beyond that, we're gonna put pictures of him on the ground so that people step on his face, like you guys do in Iran with flags of other countries and stuff like that. And if you don't like that, we're gonna have a website where all people do is pee on a picture of him all day. And so you have to escalate. It's the only thing they understand. When you back down, that encourages them. That encourages
Indeed.
them. Oh, this is how to get what we want.
And so it's a reasonable point, as you said, that they want to ensure the safety of the drivers and so on. But for one thing, if they didn't have mass Muslim migration, they wouldn't have to worry about that. And for another, as long as they continue to give in, they're just going to invite more of these kinds of threats. And so they're in a very difficult position, but they brought it on themselves. In the Islamic Republic of Iran, there was supposed to be a music concert in the town of Abadan, but in Abadan, the Friday prayer imam of the city, Abul Hussein Gobishavi, he said that concerts were sinful and music events anger Allah, and that as a result, Allah had been withholding the rain. And so if they didn't want to have a drought, they better cancel the concert. And so the concert was duly canceled. Now, what does this have to do with jihad? Why would this kind of thinking encourage more jihad?
I think jihad is just a myth, Robert, so...
Well, I'll tell you, David, this is the idea. See if you think, what do you think of this? That he's saying that Allah's going to be mad and punish us if we don't toe the line. And so whenever anything bad happens, they're likely to think, oh, it's because Allah's mad at us. And if Allah's mad at us, we have to become more Allah friendly. And what is the greatest thing you can do that Allah likes best?
Slaughter people.
There you go. And so when an imam like this, Abul Hussein Gobishavi, says something like this, it ultimately leads to more jihad violence. Because any setback in life is considered to be something that is a result of Allah's anger. And Muhammad said there was no greater deed than jihad. And so you want to please Allah? Go jihad. This is why there's so much fanaticism in places like Pakistan, because everything that goes wrong at any time in any way is considered to be the result of Allah's anger over infidelity to his teachings, so they become more fanatical.
And then that doesn't work, and so they become more fanatical.
Yep,
and
exactly.
then that leads to endless disasters, and then, well, we got to become even more fanatical. And if you combine that with 100 generations of first cousin marriage, welcome to Pakistan.
Exactly.
Hey, Robert, let's take all those guys and just release tens of thousands of them into British cities and give them open access to 12-year-old girls. What could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? It'll be multicultural and diverse. Anyway, I want to end
Multicultural
up...
paradise.
It's going to be wonderful. I want to end up with this. I just got a question out of this story, this last story here. Uh, there was a story recently about a plot by a leftist guy, you know, with the man bun, the whole 9 yards. He and his pal were plotting to attack synagogues in New York City. All right. And so he was sentenced this past week and was weeping in the courtroom and saying he was thankful that nobody had hurt and had let his family down, this leftist. And they said that his accomplice was a neo-Nazi who had a Nazi armband in his backpack when they arrested him. And so this seemed to be some kind of leftist neo-Nazi plot to blow up synagogues in New York City. Okay, but David, look at the guy's partner, the alleged neo-Nazi. Here is the photo of him that accompanied the news story. What do you think? Do you think there might be a connection in this story that the press is not telling us about?
Not at all, Robert. I dress like that all the time.
I remember you dressing like that in Phoenix. You should have seen him, ladies and gentlemen. David and I were out in Phoenix. They were filming Islamicize Me, the award-winning series that you should all see if you haven't seen it. And I came in at the end to be in a few of the episodes toward the end. And David was walking around with the kufi and the kaftan. And he looked like he had the beard grown out. He looked like an authentic convert to Islam. And at one point was even waiting for a bus, carrying a big machete and dressed like this. And nobody batted an eye. They had no problem getting on the bus and so on.
Wasn't that weird? I didn't realize how insane that was until afterwards. That, you know, we're just like, hey, let's go film this scene. Hey, a bus is pulling up. Let's go over there in full Islamic gear, and I'm standing there holding a giant machete. Let's get the shot. And then as soon as the bus gets there, we take off running because we had to make it look from the other side like we had gotten on the bus, so we have to disappear. So the bus shows up, we bolt running and stuff like that, and then people start jumping off the bus, right? They think we're jihadis and stuff. And it didn't occur till afterwards, like, man, we could have messed around and gotten some trouble over this, or gotten shot or something like that. And anyway, wild stuff.
Not in Phoenix. Anyway, I don't know about this guy. That's Christopher Brown. I don't know his story. It wasn't reported, but he sure looks like a convert to Islam to me. And, well, in any case, this is just an example of the kinds of loose ends and open questions that the establishment media always leaves us with. And we're going to leave you with that right now. And maybe there'll be more jihad next week. Maybe they'll just give it up and decide that it's a religion of peace. But if there's jihad, we'll be on it. And until then, pray, hope, and don't worry.